The movie begins and we see, in New York City, magician and musician named Hector P. Valenti forces his way into the theater and started showing magic. But he is kicked out of the theater because everyone knows him and his old magic tricks. So he go into a exotic animal shop and ask the owner to give him a cute, unusual and affordable animal which can fit in his hat. After following a music sound, he finds a little singing crocodile in a cage, whom he later named Lyle. Of course he buys him, takes him into his house. At night Hector starts playing piano to make Lyle sing. At first the crocodile shows no response to him but eventually started liking him and they both started singing and dancing like a crazy and happy man all over the house. Next, Hector rents a theater for their new team performance, and since he doesn't have money left he places his house as collateral. After that they rehearse a lot and cover the entire city with posters. Finally the day comes to perform on stage. But unfortunately, Lyle got a stage fear and stuns in front of the public. Obviously the show is a complete failure. And now Hector have to pay with his house. Before leaving his house, to earn some cash, Hector said Lyle to hide in the attic. 18 months later, we see Primm family have arrived to live in Hector's old house. Mr. Primm is a math teacher and Mrs. Primm is a housewife who loves to write cookbooks about eating healthy and she is obsessed with it, and their son Josh, who is suffering from a lot of phobias and allergies, is not happy to move to this city because he thinks the crime rate of the city is very high and that might be dangerous. As soon as they arrive, they meet the downstairs neighbor Mr. Grumps, who has a cat named Loretta. Grumps is a very strict and annoying man who always complains about everything and says to Primm family to follow the rules of the house, else they will meet in court, and also to stay away from his cat. The Primm family is very happy to be in a new house and Mr. Primm hangs up the memories of his day as a wrestling champion to make the house more homely. Josh got a whole floor for him. At night he hears some weird noises coming from the attic. When he go to investigate the room he found Lyle inside a glass box pretending to be a doll. There is also a letter, in which Hector have asked the reader to take care of Lyle as he is his most prized possession. Josh ignores it thinking it's a doll and goes back to sleep. On the first day of his school, Josh already makes a bad impression, when he accidentally walks into a group of dancer led by Trudy in the middle of the recording of their clip. He is a complete embarrassment when it comes to wrestling. And later he eats his lunch alone because he is unable to make new friends. Later at home, Josh searches for tips to make friends on internet. At that moment Loretta appears at the window to drink milk. Josh takes the chance to bring Loretta inside. Suddenly, he hears someone singing from the attic. Josh takes Loretta and go to the room to investigate. This time Lyle shows up in front of him. Josh freaked out, and Loretta tries to attack Lyle, but Lyle accidentally swallows her. Josh yells in worry, and that scared Lyle so he run out of the room through window. Josh runs after him to get Loretta back. He faces difficulties while chasing him because of his fear of height, but for the sake of Loretta he chases him throughout the city. Suddenly, a scary-looking robber comes to him to take his phone. Lyle doesn't want to leave Josh in danger. So he scares the robber away with a loud roar. And eventually Lyle vomits out Loretta on Josh's hand. Josh thinks Lyle is not harmful and convinces him to get back to the house. The next we see, Mrs. Primm is finishing unpacking ingredients from a bunch of boxes and finds a bag of chocolate-dipped cherries, but she wants to throw away them, because they are unhealthy. Mr. Primm loves those cherries and doesn't want to throw them. So he pretends to throw them away when he takes out the trash. In the attic room Lyle is sleeping and Josh has come to thank him for last night. And gifts him his favorite card from his hero deck. Next we see, after meeting Lyle Josh has now changed. He is now very cheerful and confident. He takes shortcut through the city to go to school, which surprises her mother. Later, we see Mrs. Primm watching the old videos of the family and wonders if she is starting to lose her son, and Lyle is seeing her through a ventilator. When she starts crying he decides to try to cheer her up, by dropping the bag of cherries at her door without being noticed. But Mrs. Primm throws them in the trash instead of being cheered up. Meanwhile, Josh is reading about Crocodile in the school library and sees Trudy passing by. He tried to be friend with her but his actions and words are not so sociable. Trudy finds it weird but she sends him a friend request in social media anyway. That evening, Josh sneaks out of the house with Lyle and Loretta to have some fun. Lyle, Josh, and Loretta started gathering food from the dumpsters of restaurants throughout the city, and arrange a feast on their building's rooftop after collecting enough food. At first Josh hesitates to eat, but he liked the food after Lyle pushes some sweets into his mouth. Josh started telling him about his life, and he reveals that Mrs. Primm is his stepmom and his real mother died when he was 2 years old. Josh is disappointed because Lyle doesn't talk back to him. So Lyle put up a whole show making the rooftop his dance floor, and teaches Josh some dance moves and helps him to overcome his fear of height. The next morning Mrs. Primm looks for Josh and go to attic room. She sees a huge crocodile sleeping next to her son. She screams out loudly and take Josh away from Lyle. But Lyle follows them and try to calm her down by singing a song. But Mrs. Primm still thinks he is harmful, and gets out of the house to take Josh to school. Josh convinces her by telling her that Lyle is the first friend he has made in this city. Mrs. Primm agrees to keep him for a while, because she wants her son to be happy. After she returns home, she finds the bag of cherries on the floor again, so she throws them back in the trash. And then she follows some weird noises coming from the bathroom. When she opened the door of bathroom, she sees Lyle having a bath, and runs away into the kitchen out of panicness. To calm her down, Lyle begins to sing a song while cooking. And through the music he states that life needs more sugar and spice, instead of boring boiled and simple food. Eventually Mrs. Primm get impressed and they both started singing and cooking and had a lot of fun together. When Josh comes back from school he finds his mother and Lyle singing and cooking. Now, Mrs. Primm also joined Lyle and Josh. And 3 of them together gathered food from dumps and has feast on the rooftop of the building. Here, Grumps set up security cameras in building without any permissions. Afterwards we see, Mr. Primm is suspicious about Mrs. Primm being so much happy these days, so one morning when they were having pizza for breakfast he finally asked her the reason of her happiness. So Mrs. Primm finally decides to tell him about Lyle. When Mr. Primm sees Lyle he got panicked and takes his family away from Lyle. Suddenly, Hector shows up and calls Lyle. But Lyle will not talk to Hector, for leaving him alone. But he showed his love towards Hector after singing with him. According to agreement Hector can live for 15 days out of the year in his house. Mr. Primm doesn't like this to be happen. At night Hector and Lyle enjoy themselves by playing music and having musical chats. Mr. Primm is so annoyed by this. Actually Mr. Primm's students in the school doesn't listen to him and that makes him worry. Grumps also gets disturbed by Hector and Lyle's music. The next day is the family day but Mr. Primm denies to join the family because he is so much weirded out by the changes in his life, and decides to run for a while. Hector joins Mrs. Primm and Josh and tell them that they can bring Lyle with them, if they wear a Gators team t-shirt. Cause nobody on the streets will want to believe that there is an actual crocodile hanging out among them. Then 4 of them had a lot of fun together visiting parks, going to restaurant, going on long drives, driving pedal cars and visiting museums and so on. The next day, we see Mr. Primm is still weirded out by everyone. But now Lyle wants to change his mind by playing wrestling match with him. The match started, and they both struggled to win but at last, Lyle let Mr. Primm win the match. He got happy and more confident, which helped him in fixing his students' behavior and strengthen his character in school. One afternoon Hector shows the Primm family a wonderful stage show. And drags the shy Lyle to perform along with him. Hector thinks Lyle is now ready to perform on stage again, so Hector plans to take him to another stage performance, but Josh protests his idea explaining him that Lyle need family and a home, not a stage to perform. This show also turns out to be a failure. The next day Grumps drag Primms into a meeting to accuse them of hiding something and trying to get the other neighbor to vote for them to leave the building. Primm doesn't know how to defend all the noise Lyle has been making. But luckily, Hector shows up and tells everyone that Grumps have set up security cameras in building without anyone's permission. So technically he is spying on everyone. Grumps get furious and kick everyone out, and promise to take a revenge from Hector. Primm's family is thankful to Hector, but Hector disappeared pretty quickly. Suddenly, wildlife control appears to catch Lyle. Josh desperately asks Lyle to sing to prove his harmlessness. But he is not able to sing in front of strangers. So he got caught and sent to a zoo. The Primm family visit him at zoo. And Josh want to save him. But his parents says Lyle will be with other crocodiles and have experts to look after him so he will be safe. Josh disagrees with their decision and suddenly faint out by a panic attack. It turns out Hector is the one who sold Lyle for money. After Lyle is gone, everyone is sad and silent. Mr. Primm puts away his wrestling uniform. Mrs. Primm drops his painting. Loretta will not eat anything and Josh always weeps on Lyle's bed. One evening Hector comes back. Josh is so angry and disappointed on him for selling Lyle. Hector explains him that he didn't have any choice but to sell him. 'Cause he had no money to repay his debt. And also says that he regrets his action, so now he wants to save Lyle. But Josh does not want to believe him anymore. So Hector goes to zoo alone to save Lyle. He handcuffs his own hand to the bars to lure out the guard towards him. When the guard comes to see him, he handcuffs the guard's hand in place of his hand with his magic. He gates the zoo keys and sneaks inside the crocodile pit. He says Lyle to come with him, but Lyle ignores him, cause he is disappointed on him, and here the crocodiles begin getting dangerous. Eventually Josh shows up. Hector asks him to help him convince Lyle. But he refuses, saying that he have to make things right, on his own. Hector understands and finally apologizes to Lyle. He admits that he used Lyle, but he has changed and also allows him to stay with Josh and his family forever. Then Lyle helps Hector and agrees to run away with them. While leaving the zoo, the police arrives and surrounds them. Josh tells Hector that they can't ruin forever. They have to find a way to show the world that Lyle is a kind and a special crocodile. Suddenly a bus drives by, promoting a talent show. Josh plans to perform on that show with Lyle. So Hector distracts the cops with his magic while Lyle and Josh escape from them. Lyle and Josh gets near the Hector's bike. At first Josh hesitates to drive it, but then he gets motivated by Lyle and drives the bike. Josh's driving skills are terrible. But somehow they manage to make it to Times Square. Trudy also participated in that show. So they asked Trudy to help them out. Trudy gets scared after seeing Lyle, but Josh manages to calm her down and explain her everything quickly. Then Trudy decides to help him and show them the way to the stage. Police has also arrived on the show. So Josh asked to the Lyle to prove the world his innocence by singing. But Lyle is not able to do it, so Josh started singing alone. Lyle got motivated by seeing Josh singing desperately for his sake. So Lyle started singing and surprises everyone by his performance. A month later we see Primms is in the court. Because Grumps had put a case on him for keeping an exotic animal as a pet, which is illegal. The judge thinks Grumps is right. But Hector shows in time and shows judge a paper which reveals that his house used to belong to his grandmother, the founder of New York Zoo, so it is legal for him to keep an exotic animal in his house. Therefore, the Primms win the case. And we see Loretta abandon Grumps and joins the Primm. In the next scene, we see Lyle goes on a family trip with Primm family. Suddenly, Trudy arrives and shows Hector her rattlesnake, who is an amazing beatboxer. Hector thinks him as a perfect replacement for Lyle, and the movie ends. Make sure to subscribe our channel and hit the bell icon to stay notified about our new videos. Thanks for watching.